Hello guys, and welcome to a new Steel Division video today by me, Vulcan. Today I have for you a 3 vs 3 on Omaha, and in this one I'm going to be playing with the Panzer Lehr division. I have a 716th and 17th SS Panzer Grenadier on my team, and on the opposing side we have the 101st 4th Armoured and Guards Armoured. Now this is the 4v4 version of Omaha, so it does come with the awesome beach down here. But yeah, the main issue with this is I'm playing Panzer Lehr. That's basically it. On a 4v4 map, and therefore I'm going to be spread quite thin in the first two phases with limited amount of forces. And I was a little bit worried about it. I believe I joined a 4v4 lobby. Not many people were joining, so they decided to start it on 3v3, but didn't change the map. So we're all spread super damn thin. So it takes me a little while to get my forces down, so I'm just going to speed it up a little bit. But on the right side I do have the 17th SS Panzer Grenadier, and then on the left side I have the 716th Infantry. I really like this map. I think it's one of the coolest maps, especially in the 4v4 game mode, just like having the cliffs here with the beaches and so on. Very awesome. You've got the bunkers up here that are watching the beaches and so on. Just totally awesome. Really like it. It's just a shame that you don't play around the beach too much. I believe I've made videos in the past where I've just done beach pushes just for the sake of it. But yeah, not in this one, unfortunately. I'm going to be taking the middle of the map. Let's have a look at some of the units we're getting down. I'm going to be starting with triple AT gun. We've got a couple Panzer Grenadiers in there, a couple of the command infantry. I've also got a Panzerschreck in the mix as well. Now it's quite interesting that I brought in both of the commands at the start. Generally you do, because they're relatively cheap, like 15 points each compared to every other unit that you can get on the division. But you often have to play around having no command nearby with the Panzer Lehr, and it can catch you out like a little bit, but generally if you're smart about it, you can get away with it quite nicely. I'm just going to continue to speed it up because the deployment did take a little while. But just going to be finishing off the convoy there with a 251, which is carrying a speed troop, and we have another 250-10 in there. So the mix of like mechanized forces in the Panzer Lehr is incredibly fun to play with, I feel. In the first phase and in the second phase, like playing around mechanized units is definitely something that the Panzer Lehr does very well. I'm starting to already see a little bit of a push coming in here, so all these units, these are heading to the right side just to spread out, just to kind of protect this road, I guess, from people pushing down here. If we look at where all of my AT guns are going, they're just going to sort of protect each road, and then the one on the far left and the one on the far right have command with them. And what ends up happening is I bump into my opponent on this road, and I unload this Pak 38 because it was the one that was basically supposed to be there. And then the other thing that I do is I stop the 250-10. I unload the Panzerschreck, get that out of the way, use the 250-10 to take on the 50 cal Jeep. And the 250-10 can easily do the job there, so very nice. Picking that off. That allows me a little bit of time to get some more units to this left side. The AT gun's basically in this bush so that it can fire all the way up the road. And here you'll find it takes out another Jeep 50 cal. So Nico trying to make good use of those, but big old salient forming. WC-25 goes down there as well. And I did see a Jeep here briefly, so I'm a little bit worried about that, because it could be anything. It's not affecting the front line. It's probably some sort of Pathfinders, I guess. But round the corner my 251 comes, and you wouldn't want to be these infantry. You're staring down the road at Panzergrens and a half-track. And just as these guys get pinned down, my 250-10 comes rolling past and makes them surrender. And my 250-10 is going to go off down that road, up into the salient. Now I did lose the 250-10 on the left side to a bazooka squad from Nico. We've got the Panzer Grenadiers on the left side, though. They're in the tree line there, going to be forcing the airborne units out of their trucks. We're making loads of ground here. So on this far right side, double Nebelwerfer start from Tyra, which is very interesting. Basically napalmed the roads on both the left and right side. And then on this left side, well, 716th player, the Magic Man, is holding very, very well over this town. So I'm just holding here for at the moment. Meanwhile, just having my half-tracks go for a jaunt through the enemy lines, and I guess at this point I should probably say that obviously my opponent chopped the ball quite significantly by leaving such a large space between them, but as I was saying at the start, 4v4 map, Omaha, I mean it's a massive map, and at this point basically what happened was between the Guards Armored player and the 101st player, they just didn't meet in the middle, and it's really cost them so far, since I'm just able to push forwards all of my units as far as I like, and this 251-21 even getting all the way to the land spawn at the start. And this is something that I feel that you can do in a lot of games. Generally people are quite scared to like sacrifice a half track, but I mean it's well worth it in my opinion to like get a 251-21 to drive this far up the map and give us a +2 early on. But meanwhile anyway, Spear Troop are engaging airborne rifles, and if we're just talking about what the Panzer Lehr can do, it's just fantastic that the Spear Troop, as a 4-man recon squad, can put up a fight against the airborne rifles with the assistance of a half-track. I think that's really, really nice. And these Spear Troop, they definitely save your ass in Phase A if you run out of Panzer Grenadiers, because you have 4 units of Panzer Grenadiers to work with, right? So Spear Troop are going to be part of your line infantry, that's just how it works. And we do have a couple of units of artillery hitting us quite hard. So I've got my own 257 coming up, not only to help me with enemy artillery, but also to pinpoint strike enemy AT guns as well. But if they've invested in 2 artillery pieces at the start, that probably explains why there's this massive gap in their front line, because you got to be very careful. Like, I spread out quite thin, honestly, for the amount of units I have, and I've just been using obviously my half tracks to push all the way up, and then keeping my Panzer Grenadiers in a securer or more secure position further back. My Panzer Grenadier finally arrives to give the extra command stars to the Panzertreck and the Panzer Grenadiers. But yeah, I'm keeping these 2 units here rather than continuing to run them forwards, just because they're in buildings, and this is probably the best place for them to be. But I do have a unit of Panzer Grenadiers that's going to jaunt all the way up to the reinforcement point. We are kind of being pushed in from both sides here. Our little corridor is being broken down slowly, but we're still obviously at quite an advantage with my half-track pushing all the way through. Now things do get a lot more exciting. I know this probably looks pretty boring at the moment, but I really wanted to show off the mechanized capability of the Panzer Lehr, and generally it takes a little while to get rolling, but as soon as it does, it's so damn epic. Like, the Panzer Lehr has such a different playstyle to so many other divisions that bringing in like all these half tracks with different capabilities, like the mortar half tracks, the 250-10s with the AT guns on, your normal half tracks, like accompanied by your like Panzerwerfers, like Spear Troop. It's just a very interesting way to play. Now here the 250-10, it gets caught out by an airborne rifle squad. I had it kind of hid behind a tree line here, and it is just going to end up trying to fall back. But the last bazooka is not going to miss, and the 250-10 goes down. So they're slowly starting to close the massive salient we got going on. 250-10 is going to be arriving and moving a little bit further forwards, just so that it can actually hit the enemy artillery there. At close range, the Panzer Grenadiers, both using their MG to hit the airborne leader as well as the airborne rifles, are moving the 251 around. And that's to take out the airborne rifles there. I use a Panzerwerfer to destroy one of the M1 howitzers, and finding out that it was an M1 howitzer, basically explains to me even more so why they have such a big gap in their front line. Because 2 M1 howitzers at the start of the game, these things, they cost 100 points each. And if you're spending 200 points on artillery at the start of the game, obviously you're going to have a massive gap in your front line. Like one of them, fair enough, but just make sure you have like the airborne rifles and the airborne engineers to defend this area. Maybe he thought his teammate would, but at the same time, he's got the infantry to do so, so why wouldn't you? So let's just jump back to my perspective. Obviously I'm kind of butting heads with all of the 101st in this little block, whilst my sort of forces up here are just trying their best to harass the enemy as long as they can and keep that little gap up and up there. But yeah, I don't know, I finally get cut off, and that little fun I had up there is going to fall apart. But I still have the nice foothold in this town a little bit further up, so that's working well for me at the moment. Now on this left side, combination of the half tracks going to be used with the speed troop and the Panzerlehr to try and pin down these rifles. And if I can, I know there's no command nearby, so just make them surrender. Just waiting for them to get pinned down by the machine guns of the speed troop maybe, or just like the rifles. I don't think the MG is actually firing because it's too close, but I managed to back off the 251 to a range where it can't get hit by the bazooka, and pinning it down allows me to make it surrender with the speed troop. Now one thing to remember is even though speed troop don't affect the front line, they can still make enemy units surrender. So play around that as much as you can, because it can definitely catch people out, I feel. Now my 2 half tracks there slamming the airborne engineers in the open. I've got this one providing a crossfire from the left side as well, doing a lot of damage over there. 251 one finally goes down at the top side of the map. Now down here, this was cheeky. Airborne bazooka comes out of nowhere, tries to take out my 257. Really nice try. Getting that airborne bazooka that close. My Panzergrenadiers there were fortunately able to pin down the airborne bazooka squad. I did move away my Panzerwerfers just in case, as I didn't want that to basically become unpinned and shoot my Panzerwerfer. But the Pathfinder's going to go down there, and we're slowly chipping away at the 101st player in this block. Now up here, unfortunately my Panzergrenadiers I think ended up surrendering, so does the half track. So they take control of their land spawn, and there's not much else I can do about that. Just going to maintain control of the town here. Could obviously put all of my resources into pushing all the way through here, but at the end of the day I just wanted to show off the mechanized push that the Panzer Lehr can do without relying too much on tanks. Because a lot of people perceive the Panzer Lehr to be a tank division, but honestly, like the way I've been playing it recently, that's just not the case. It's just totally more mechanized than armored. So here comes some more reinforcements. I also have some anti-air on the way, flak 37 mils. Still trying to push through into these airborne rifles and speed troop here. I'm trying to make the airborne rifles surrender, but they are in the radius of the airborne leader, which doesn't help. P-47 Thunderbolt comes in, takes up the speed troop. Bit of an odd investment, I feel. Why would you pay that much for a P-47 Thunderbolt and hit a speed troop squad? Like ideally you'd want to hit the Panzerwerfer or the 257. Yeah, you probably couldn't see them, but I mean at least wait until you can. Just seems a bit odd to me. Either way, 251-21 going to be hitting the M1919, and my infantry reinforcement is finally arriving. So this is just going to allow me to continue to push through, and with 4 half tracks on target along with the Panzergrenadiers, airborne rifle is just not going to last very long at all. So I'm just starting to build up my AA, as you generally do with the Panzer Lehr. I think in general in this game, I would just kind of ignore what happened on this right side, kind of focus on what's happening here. Like if you can get the focus with the Panzer Lehr, and they aren't using necessarily AT effectively, like the amount of work you can do with half tracks is just absolutely spectacular. So I've got the Panzer Grenadiers here alongside this 251 hitting the airborne rifles. Now my half track takes out the Jeep there, which blows up next to the airborne rifles and helps me pin them down very quickly. That's just going to allow me to run forwards with the Panzer Grenadiers and try and take them out. Meanwhile, my other half tracks are going to continue forwards. Over on this right side, Pak 38's engaging in M4. And like I was saying in my updated battlegroup overview, these Pak 38's do struggle to take out M4s. At that range, there is definitely penetration chance, but 2 bounces there from an unvetted Pak 38. I mean, I was surprised it even hit in the first place. I just expected it to kind of die. But the half track's now pushing very, very hard and breaking through a lot of this infantry. And it looks like there he was trying to get a Pathfinder squad close to my 251-21. Unfortunately, those gammon bombs, they're really unreliable. He is going to have another chance to kill the 251-21, but again, he missed. I ran forwards and take out the M1919. And, well, just as all of my half-tracks are moving forwards, I've got my 251-21s arriving as well. Pathfinder's still missing its gammon bombs. And that half-track's going to just end up making the Pathfinder surrender in the end. My 257's hitting the M1 howitzer up there. And I'm just continuing to push forwards with all of my mechanized forces. I finally broke the back of the 101st player in this area. I believe it's because he actually invested over on this right side, just kind of punished it really badly. Like this M4 would have been perfect for dealing with all of these half tracks on this left side, but seeing that over there just allowed me to push all the way up, and now even my 257's doing a fantastic job. I'm mortaring the road. He's trying to bring up reinforcements, and all that's ended up happening was he's just ran his engineers into the fire of 251-21s and my mortar. So we take out the M1 howitzer anyway, and the 251-21s have a lot of fun just pinning down and killing off these engineers. Meanwhile, the rest of my forces are all just moving forwards. Pretty much got everything moving. Panzer Grenadiers, half tracks, 251-21s. I mean, just these half tracks alone, they're just so damn cool. So Tripolston on wheels. They're supported by the other half tracks as well. It's completely mechanized push, was just totally awesome. I really, really enjoyed it. And over on this right side, Panzer Truck pays itself off, takes out the M4, and at the same time, Panzer Grenadiers pinned down the airborne rifles. Probably wasn't paying attention. Managed to get them to surrender. So yeah, his investment in points on the right side just went completely there, as I managed to destroy him. We're still at a +2, and I believe that sort of stays the way until the end of the game, since on the left side, Magic Man's kind of putting a lot of pressure on with the 716th. On the right side, maybe not so much. We have Tyra kind of losing some ground on the beach to get nasty here. But he still has his 2 Nebelwerfers alive, so he's able to use those to pin down the enemy tanks there and give him a little bit of a break. Thunderbolt comes in, takes out one of my 251-21s. And, well, finally the M1 guns come in, and they're going to be starting to counter my half-track push. Now, the main thing that the 101st player probably should have done from the start is maybe not invested so much in those howitzers, but invested in the M3 guns. That would have definitely been a much better choice, I believe, because then these half-tracks that I've been bringing in would have died so damn easy, and that would have meant that the majority of his infantry would have still been alive, and that would have put a lot more pressure on me than he otherwise did. Now M4 is coming around the corner here to take on my 251-21 and my half-tracks. So it's just a matter of sort of staying out of line of sight of these tanks at this point. I'm bringing up a Befehl Panther to try and take out the M4, so I'm kind of just letting this one take the fire so that it gives me time to move the Befehl Panther up, and as soon as he gets line of sight he's going to be having a go at the M4. Unfortunately missing the first shot, but I think Nico, he tries to just move it to the right side to try and remain out of line of sight. All that leads to though is my Befehl Panther finding line of sight onto an enemy unit there. That was the M1 howitzer. So he's got, I mean, a relatively good defense going on now, but it's just a little bit far back, obviously. The halfway mark is like here. So we've managed to break all the way through. The main thing we have to be worried about is the AT gun. Those Shermans are kind of hard for me to deal with. If he keeps them behind this tree line, it's actually going to be quite hard for me to move up with the Befehl Panther. But I've got 232 coming up now to provide some command, and I've got the Panzerwerfer waiting and ready to fire another barrage. I've got the supply coming now. That's currently resupplied the mortar, and I was also using it to give more rockets to the Panzerwerfer. But there we go. Engineer's going to go down. 251-21 gets taken out by the M1 gun as it sort of sneaks forwards to get that kill. You're going to see the Panzer Grenadier there get pinned down briefly by the Jeep 50 cal, but the Jeep 50 cal is going to be gone. And yeah, that was basically it. The really nice sort of mechanized push coming through, the mass of half tracks. It's been a little while since I've really managed to do that properly, like break through a front line with half tracks like that. But again, it's mainly due to the 101st player not relying on M3 guns in Phase A. And from now on, we're just kind of waiting for the game to end. It's currently a +1, which means there's like 14 minutes left on the game. It's on the right side. There has been some half tracks and this universal carrier pushing down the beach, but looks like Tyro is now finally trying to deal with that, moving a 2-3-1 over to the right side. But as you can see, we are now in Phase C, so getting those extra points is definitely going to make it very hard for the 101st player to hold the line now. He is kind of in an ideal situation here in terms of the terrain for the 101st, but basically he's already kind of lost the ground that he needed to hold in order to maintain a 50-50, and this ground's quite open in general, so unless these M1 guns manage to really pay themselves off, he's still going to be in a pretty bad spot. Now airborne engineers here alongside the glider rifles are trying to take on my Panzer Grenadiers. But with the Befehl Panther that close and able to lay down the fire, the airborne engineers get absolutely ripped to shreds. The glider rifles aren't dead yet, but are pinned down. So I was assuming that there was like another unit nearby that was stopping them from surrendering. So I'm just continuing forwards at the moment with the Panzer Grenadiers to find that squad. Like if there's another infantry squad, I believe, within 100 meter range, like an allied infantry squad within 100 meter range of your pinned down unit, the pinned down unit won't surrender. But here what happens is my Panzer Grenadiers move up to engage the glider rifles. The glider rifles are actually going to run out of that range, and therefore they are going to surrender. But the Panzer Grenadiers are going to take a rocket strike to the face because of that. And we are going to see my other Panzer Grenadier squad go down to the M1 howitzer. Pack 40 is in the same spot, so that doesn't help either. And I am slowly being pushed out of this orchard by rifles alongside airborne rifles and so on. Are going to be more than enough to do a lot of damage to the units that I had to kind of protect in the orchard. But I do have another Tiger on the way. I've also got a bunch of infantry I've just decided to bring in. I'm now sitting at 150 points per minute, so that allows me to bring in like 3 units of Pioneers every minute, which is quite a lot. Do manage to get a kill over on this left side to a Sherman, M4A1 I believe that was. Being hit here by some airborne engineers. 251-21 though, that's going to go down to a bunch of 80. These airborne engineers engaging my Panzer Grenadier at range. I'm just going to use the Panzer basically to allow the Pak 38 time to get out of there. But knowing that he's using glider rifles and these airborne engineers in this sort of orchard, I am pushing through the 232 and some of my half-tracks and so on. And yes, my half-tracks have been destroyed before, but seeing the bazooka come out on the left side makes that a little bit less of a guess as to where the AT is. I do, of course, have the Pioneers on the way, and they're coming and ready to push through the tree line, but here are the glider rifles I was talking about. They're just going to get smashed to pieces by a 2-star 232. 20mm autocannons are still very strong, and there I just kind of proved the point. That was a 12-man infantry squad gone down in 2 seconds. Pak 40 does go down as well. My opponent relying very heavily on artillery, but I still control this town area, and Tyra kind of secured the right side, so we're hitting that +1 again, basically bouncing back between the +1 and the +2. Focke-Wulf 190's come over, basically to deny enemy aircraft from basically hitting me, but Nico decided to bring in the B-26B Marauder anyway. So that's just going to line up perfectly with my Focke-Wulf being in the sky. I do have the 2 Flak 36s as well, so I'm going to be able to affect the accuracy of that bombing strike a little bit. But he's going for the strike there onto the Tiger E just to force it to fall back. There is still some Shermans here I need to worry about, so there is that, but Focke-Wulf 190, unfortunately, too much AA for it to actually shoot down the B-26B, and that's going to get out of there. So going to drop off multiple squads of Pioneers, 3-star Pioneers with the assistance of the Befehl Panther, and that's going to allow me to destroy the Bazooka squad and move on. 3-star 251, going to do a lot of damage to the engineers as well in the open. So we're doing relatively well here, and currently what's happening is I'm moving my Befehl Panther over to the left side to take care of the enemy Shermans. I've also got 2 Flam Panzers on the way, and assisted by the Pioneers will make a lot of ground through the orchard quite easily. So that's what they're there for. Again, P-38 coming in, going to be bombing out my Befehl Panther, trying to get the strike on there so that he can pin that down and start to charge it with the M4A1 Rhino, which is, I guess, something to try, but he didn't actually get the pin onto the Befehl Panther, so now his Rhino's coming round the corner anyway, straight into the line of sight of a Befehl Panther that isn't even stunned, and that's not good at all. Especially when it's 2-star veterancy and it does have the accuracy on that main gun. The Rhino's going to go down immediately. So a GMC HMG going to be hit by both the Pioneers and the 251-1. This does have a 50 count on it, but it's very weak because it doesn't have any armor. But the Thunderbolt's going to come in and save the day anyway. Pins down the Thunderbolt, or pins down the Pioneers, sorry. My half-track's going to be catching up to that though. Going to be getting some shots off there. A little bit more concerned about these airborne engineers, so just going to take them out quick. My Befehl Panther actually misses its shot, but the machine gun does the job as I mow them down in the open. But you can see that I have been relying very much on sort of a mechanized push here. The Flam Panzers with my half-tracks, 232 in there, got the artillery and so on, and then it's just backed up by like 1 tank. And that's pretty much my entire push throughout this game. And it's something that I've definitely been trying throughout quite a few games, and this was the best one to actually demonstrate that. I've had a lot of games that were, I don't know, a bit lackluster, I guess. And this was pretty lackluster as well if you think of like the fact that we've been at a +2 for like the majority of the game. But I felt like, again, it was the best one that kind of demonstrated the use of these particular units. And here in the late game, I mentioned that like the 251-16s are really, really good at like penetrating front lines once you get a little bit of ground. And again, just kind of proving the point here with the 251-16 moving forwards, taking out the Bofors, taking out the GMC HMG. Just nothing they can do. And that Bofors is just going to burn to death on the napalm. 251-21 can come in and make that pin down. On the left side, the Fel Panther comes in and actually takes out the M4 Sherman there. And, well, the other Bofors also got pinned down by the flames. So, going to be basically hammering that. And broke through again on that left side. Just kind of a little bit concerned about the M1 gun, of course. So I can't go completely ham around the edge of this tree line. But at the moment, it's going to be these half tracks that are the target of the M1 gun. Now bring out the Pioneer. The Pioneer here is basically trying to take care of the M1 gun. They also use the grenade to take care of the glider rifles. Just absolutely blew the crap out of them. The M1 gun goes down there to the machine guns. I've got the Pioneers moving through this tree line. I've got the Tiger E coming up to take care of the M4. I've got to be a bit careful of the rifles charging me down there. So I do react to that quickly, but it doesn't matter as they get pinned down by the Panzer Grenadiers. The M1 howitzer goes down, and well, that's the end of that. Shoot down a Lightning on the left side with the Focke-Wulf 190 as well while I'm at it. So yeah, that's another breakthrough. The 100 player was holding on quite well there, but just managing to use this 251-16 to push all the way through was really good, and I used the Focke-Wulf 190 there, 2-star veterancy, just to finish off the infantry squad quite nicely. So I've still got the Fel Panther here, that's still rolling forwards, but with 3 seconds left on the clock, that is job done, and we win the game. So after 29 minutes and 43 seconds, that is victory. Now, I'm sorry that wasn't like the most exciting, intense game ever, but again, it was mainly just to demonstrate my points that I made in the battle group overview, and I felt like I showed off a lot of the units and the way that I've been intending to use them throughout. So there you have it. Just a bit disappointing that obviously the front line was that easy to push throughout the game. Like I felt like the communication on the enemy team was just not ideal. But the kills here pretty spread, as you can see. The Pak 38s picking up their fair share, took out the M4A1. We've got the Panzer Grenadiers there getting their kills. We've got the Panzerwerfer killing off the M1 guns and the M1 howitzer. We've got the 257 mortar carrier taking out another M1 gun. That definitely helps us out. And then these Panzerschrecks. Look how many kills that Panzerschreck got. Absolutely insane. This one killed an M4 as well. And that is just paying themselves off so much. Focke-Wulf took down the P38 at the end, just it wasn't completely useless. And yeah, that is basically a lot. So as a Panzer Lehr, just that combined mechanized push is something that I don't think a lot of people expect, and it can be very, very effective if the enemy don't play around it properly. Just make sure you have the artillery to suppress AT, and then you can just go absolutely ham with your support units. And that's your lot. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.